Hi, I'm Mark Rudin. Today I'm going to be using Splice Samples to add drums to a track that I've already started. I'm going to show you how I customize the samples to make them my own, but more importantly so that they work in context with the tracks that are already there. Here in my Ableton session I have some pre-recorded audio, and this is what it sounds like. And what this is there's an acoustic guitar that I played. I played it twice so that I could do a nice stereo panning effect. Recorded it twice, put one on the left, one on the right. And then I also have this here, which is some percussion, and this percussion is actually me using my hands to drum on the body of the acoustic guitar. And together we have this. Now my thought with that was, okay, that's a cool loop that I could use for a bigger section of the song, probably the chorus. But I needed something simpler that I could use in the intro and the first verse of the song. So what I did was I chopped this up and made this. And that is the loop that we'll be working with today. The first thing that I want to do is I want to add a kick drum to it. So I'm going to go over to my Splice app. I put together a collection of some samples that I pre-selected. And for the kick, I found this Big Oak's Big Kit funk kick. And there it is. Shout out to Oak Felder. And I chose this kick because I thought that it had a nice organic and woody tone to it, which would fit really well with the acoustic elements that I already had recorded. I'm going to change the color of this right away because I like to color code everything, and blue for me is drums. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to listen to see where I want to place the kick. Yeah, it's pretty simple. Just goes right along with what the music is dictating there. And it's pretty much that just happens over and over. So I'm going to consolidate this first measure, and I'm going to go ahead and duplicate it throughout my loop here. So here we go. Let's have a listen. Nice. So just drag and dropping this kick into my session is really not going to do it for me, because I am hearing some frequencies resonating that are rubbing against the elements that I have already recorded. And what I want to do is I want to tailor this kick to work with what I have recorded. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start by grabbing the Fab Filter Pro Q3. This is one of the greatest plugins in the world, and probably the most common plugin used in all of music production. So I'm going to use this technique where I'll create a band here, a nice thin cue, and I'm going to solo up my kick, and I'm going to drag this around. I'm going to look for some frequencies that are popping out, that are really resonating and ringing, that are the ones that are rubbing against what's going on in my pre-recorded audio there. So let's see here. Yeah, right there. And if I go down to this piano roll, I can see where I'm at. I'm going to click right on this B flat, which is right where it was at. And yeah, that makes a ton of sense. This song I happen to know because I played it, and you should always know the key of your song anyway, but this is in B minor, and so a low B flat ringing out is just not going to work very well in that case. So I'm going to cut that. I'm doing about a 3 dB cut on there. I'm going to thin it out just a little bit more on the cue. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab another band because I'm still hearing some more issues. And it sounds like it's right in this area here. Okay, yeah. And again, I'm going to go down to my piano roll. I'm clicking on right where it is to lock it in, and it's an F. So another note that just does not work in the key of B minor. So I'm going to cut that out as well. Okay. I'm also just hearing some general low rumble that I just know I don't need. Now, these samples often have a ton of low end in them. So by me cutting out some of this, and I'm giving it a high pass filter here to about 25 hertz, there's still going to be plenty of low end for me to work with in the mix process. So I just want to get rid of some of that rumble right off the bat. And that's sounding good. Let's hear it in my track. Great. So the next thing I want to do is I want to add some snaps, and I found these two snaps. And I'm going to actually layer these two snaps together. This first snap I felt like had a great tone to it, but it was a little bit small sounding and a little dry sounding, even though it's labeled wet there. This other one has a lot of character to it and has a nice reverb tail that I can work with. So I'm going to drag both these guys into my session, and the snaps are going to be on 2 and 4. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to start with it on beat 2 there. I'm going to zoom in and see what's going on. Now, the first thing I notice is this bottom one here is very late. So I'm going to fix that. I'm just going to scooch her over. And this other one, it looks a little late, but it's not. It's just got this really nice to it. So I'm just going to leave that there and give everything a little bit of a nice character. So the next thing I notice, if I make this clip here really big, is you could see the waveform ends right here where my mouse is. And what that is that's the reverb ending, the reverb tail ending. And I can hear it. And unless it's absolutely intentional, you don't want to be able to hear that. So I'm going to cut it right to the end of the waveform and give a nice little fade here at the end. I'm also going to do the same thing on this one above it. And I don't need any of this information over here. So there we go. So let's hear that. Okay. Sounds nice and natural to me now. Okay. So now these snaps are, like I said, are going to be on beats 2 and 4. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy this over to beat 4. Great. I'm going to go ahead and consolidate that first measure. And again, duplicate it throughout my loop. Okay. Change the color of this again to blue, because snaps to me are drums. It's sort of a generic term for drums. Okay, I'm going to group these together because I do want to work on these together as one snap. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to relabel this snaps. And the first thing I want to do is I want to bring out a little bit more attack and punch from these snaps. So a great way to do that is with a transient designer. So I'm going to grab a transient designer. This one's called the Transient Shaper. It's a kilohertz transient shaper, and this is part of the Slate bundle. Slate bundle, by the way, one of the greatest plugin bundles of all time, and really there is no better deal out there, period. So I highly recommend it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add some of this attack. I'm going to add some sustain to that attack as well. So let's hear how that's sounding. Oh yeah, that's right what I wanted it to do. Now, something really important is when you're using a transient shaper, it adds a lot of volume. So I always will turn down a couple dB to compensate for that. Nice. Okay, so now I do want to add my own reverb tail to it. And to do that, I'm going to use another Slate product, which is the Lustrous Plates. This is just a gorgeous reverb. I use it a lot on drums and percussion, and what else do I use it on? Guitars. This is a fantastic reverb. So I am partial to this silver plate right here. So I'm going to go ahead. Obviously, I'm going to bring down the dry wet knob a little bit, and let's hear it. Nice. A little bit shorter of a reverb time. Okay, now I'm going to head over to the equalization, and I'm going to do a high-pass filter with this low cut right here. Because on your effects, it's really important to cut out some of the low end if you can, because otherwise you're going to have a lot of low end information adding to muddiness that you're going to have to deal with later in the mix. So I went ahead and I just cut that right around to 300 hertz. And that sounds exactly how I want it to sound.